There have been things that have been showing up in my life and principles for me to write about, and things for me to tell you and share with you that have really surprised me. And I've always lived by the principle of Tilopa, the 10th century Sufi master who said, have a mind that is open to everything and nowhere attached to nothing. And my wife and I always had this attitude in bringing up our children that keep an open mind, and anything that you immediately reject, get your ego out of that and just open yourself to the words of Jesus in the New Testament when he said, with God, all things are possible. And I always ask my audience, what does that leave out? What does all things are possible leave out? And obviously the answer is nothing in the book that I wrote. For the film, The Shift, there's also called The Shift. It has 4 chapters from ambition to meaning, moving our lives away from our egos and into a place of meaning. What Serena was up here speaking about, it's a sense of feeling that you're making a difference in the world. And towards the end of that book, I quoted from a man named Joel Goldsmith, who wrote The Infinite Way in parenthesis in eternity. And we actually had friends on Maui, a friend on Maui named Alexandra, who was in her 90s, and in her late 80s, she would go out kayaking every day. And she actually dated Joe Goldsmith back in the 1950s when he lived on Hawaii. He's been very much of a hero to me. And then from his book, parenthesis in eternity, what your life is a parenthesis in eternity, he said these words. He said, then there are those who reach a stage in which they realize the futility of this constant striving and struggling for the things that perish, things which after they are obtained prove to be shadows. It is at this stage that some persons turn from this seeking for things in the outer realm to a seeking for them from God. And that has been probably the major shift in my life, taking the focus in my life off of the things, the accomplishments, the acquisitions, the reputation, ownership, which we begin to identify ourselves as, and to begin to recognize that Pierre Teilhard, the great French priest who was excommunicated from the Catholic Church for his outrageous ideas in 1918, he said, you're not here as a human being, having a spiritual experience, that it's the other way around. And you've all heard it, that we are all infinite spiritual beings having a temporary human experience and beginning to live our life from this spiritual place. It's place of spirit where we recognize and identify ourselves not on the basis of what the ego says, which is on the basis of what we have and what we accomplish, what we own, and what others think of us, not based on our belief and our separation from each other. And most egregiously, not based upon our belief and our separation from God, a shift, if you will, to an awareness of our own divinity, and from that place, what is possible for all of us. So I'm going to recite up home here from a great poet. His name was Samuel Taylor Coke. He wrote a poem called The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and he also wrote one that wasn't that well known. I put it in a book of mine years ago called Real Magic. I started it with this. And I'd like you to, as I give these words, I'd like you to think about what the poet is asking and whether or not you believe in your heart or know in your heart that what the poet is saying is possible for you, or whether you think it's just the fancy kind of fanciful meanderings and dreamings of an idealist. Ask yourself, does this possible? He said, what if you slept? And what if in your sleep you dreamed? And what if in your dream you went to heaven and there picked a strange and wonderful flower? And what if when you awoke you held that flower in your hand? Ah, what? Then he concludes his poem. Ah, what then? I wonder if you think such a thing is really a possibility, that you can go into a state in which there is no form, no beginnings, no ends, no boundaries, no limits, and bring from that invisible place something that has substance, that has boundaries, that has form, that you can hold, that you can smell, and then ask yourself if that's a possibility. I wonder how many of you think yes and how many of you think no. I'm not going to ask. But the fact is that this room has, it looks like 2,500 or so people in the room tonight. Every single one of you are an example of what that poet just described. Every single one of you came from a formless place and are now form, all of you. Every flower that you look at began in a seed, and the seed began in something that is invisible. There's a little girl here tonight, Camille. Where's Camille? 6 years old or so, 7 years old. I was I was swimming with her a little while ago, and she showed me her teeth, and she said, I lost 2 of my teeth, and look, there's two teeth coming underneath it. And she was all excited about that. And I said to her mom and my daughter, Summer, who was here, just imagine that in that tiny little infinitesimally small little speck that built into, that was what she's going through right now. What is there to do? There's nothing for us to, we can't make a change in that tiny little invisible speck. Everything that you needed for this physical journey was handed for you, and you don't believe in miracles. And the great Tao, many of you know, I lived the Tao for a year, the year I turned 65, and wrote a book on it, a book that I always tell people, carry it with you wherever you go. Some call it the wisest book ever written. And I live the principles of that little book, and I encourage people to just stick it in your new purse, the ones that are made out of plastic, recycled water bottles. Is that all right? And but just carry it with you, because you don't even really need to open it, because the energy from what's in here will come to you. I had a great teacher in India used to say, he wrote a collection of his writings was called I Am That by Nagata Maharaj. And he used to say to his devotees, you don't have to read it, just carry it with you. And I heard that I was in my early 40s when I heard that. And I just thought, this is just another one of those crazy guys over there in India giving us advice. And I just didn't think that it would be possible to get. But now I've really come to an awareness that energy is in everything, and that just holding this book, literally you could muscle test this kinesiology and put this thing next to your heart, and you will be stronger with it than you were without it. Just try it. Just carry it with you. Let me see who would like a copy of this. Oh, that hand right there. The first hand up there, you? Yep. No, next to you. Yeah, stand up. Would you like to carry this with you wherever you go? There you are. God bless you. The Tao Te Ching. It's only a few dollars. It's worth having. One of the great lines in the Tao is what I'm speaking about here at these opening lines, is that it says that none of you are doing anything. You're all just being done. And when you look at your physical body, there's a recognition that this is absolutely true. You know, I mean, what can you do to change it? You know, things are drooping, folks. You can fix them up if you want to, but the inevitable is there. And the hair, well, for some of you it turns gray, and for some of you it just goes somewhere else. And you begin to see, there's also a great line in the book, because my son, who's sitting in the front row, Sands, who graduates in a couple of weeks and is going to start supporting me, I'm so happy about that. Because I often have quoted Latu, and he has often said, the Tao God divine mind, the Tao does nothing, and it leaves nothing undone. It's all perfect. So I say to him, when over the summer, over in Maui, I said, Saint, come on, do something. You got to do it. Let's go. We got to do something. He looked up at me and he said, I do nothing and I leave nothing. I'm undone. So this cuff can come back at you. It's his favorite line now, Deist philosopher. So the great saint, Swami Malkananda, was asked the question, what is real? And his response is really worth you hearing, and something for you to really think about, because the strange place that I think it's weird, it's just so magical, but it's still just, it's hard for us to wrap our arms around this idea that all things are possible. This awareness that about what is real, and Maknande said that is real, which never changes. So what part of your physical life meets that definition? We are all in these bodies that are changing every second. Therefore, by that definition, they're not real. So you go back and look at how many bodies you've been in since you showed up here. You were in a body about this big that weighed somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds, and that was you. And you were in a little toddler body about this tall, and you certainly, if someone said, is that you would have said, yeah, that's me. And then you were in a 13-year, 12-year-old body, which is one of these. I have 6 daughters, and they have a stance, you know, and they're about 13, and they go like this, and their leg goes up and down, and they roll their eyes and look at you like you ought to try to get a life someplace. You were in one of those bodies, teenage body, and you thought that was real. That's when you get the great learnings. One of my daughters, Serena, said to me one time when I raised my voice and asked her to hurry up and get moving. Come on. She looked at, I wonder what all those people would think of Mr. Positive if they could see him here this morning, she turned to her sister and said, would you buy a book from someone who yells at his 11-year-old daughter? I sneak out of the room and try to, best line I ever heard from many of my children ever, and I follow them around with a pad of paper due to give me material, was for my daughter Summer when she was 13 and her sister was 11, sitting at the breakfast table, and all of a sudden, about 6:30 in the morning, and Summer looked at Serena and said, well, if you didn't have any feet, would you wear shoes? Serena at that time, and it hasn't gone away, could hardly stand anybody talking to her at 6 o'clock in the morning and said, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard you say. We don't even talk to me. Why are you just don't even talk to me? Close your mouth. Why are you talking to me? That's so stupid. When even didn't have any feet, would I wear shoes? Of course not. And some looked at and said, don't get mad at me. I just wonder why you're wearing that bra that's, you were in one of those bodies. I was in a 20-year-old body, and I saw a picture of it on the PBS show, and I was doing a little bit of this. And the pictures of me at various stages of my life were going by, and the film was, the camera was looking at this picture, and it stopped on a picture of me when I was about 20 years old, and I'm 70 when I was 51 years ago. And there's not one cell of that body left on this planet. I really thought it was real. And when you were in your 20-year-old body, you thought it was real, didn't you? I mean, it's just like you'd look at it. He said, of course it's real. And now you look back at it and you say, if it was real, where is it and where did it go? Emily Dickinson, another great poet, one of my very favorite poets from Massachusetts, would give talks back in the 19th century, and she would pick up a handful of dirt, and she would say, just let this in. This quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies and lads and girls, was laughter and ability and sighing and frogs and curls. This passive place, a summer's nimble mansion where bloom and bees fulfilled their oriental circuit, then ceased like these. That's who you are. If you believe that you're your body, just quiet us.